Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Nancy Joseph, aka The Dynamic Doc, and welcome to another episode of How Do You Medicine, presented, of course, by yours truly, where we talk to healthcare professionals doing medicine their way. In general, we like to reiterate that medicine is not just, physicians and patients. Medicine is a very dynamic, multidimensional, and all-encompassing field, or just in general entity. So we like to both celebrate and showcase that, of course, in this podcast. And, medicine is not just the four walls of the clinic or the hospital. And so this podcast is all about highlighting how you can heal and inspire using healthcare outside of the four walls that people are so used to. So in that vein, today, I'm so excited. We have Dr. Chanda Nicole Holsey with us, and she is a health service administrator. She resides in Fleming Island, Florida. So she got her Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology. So that was at San Diego State. And then she went on to get her Master's in Public Health and Behavioral Science, Health Education at Emory. And then she went on to continue her education journey and got a doctorate of public health in maternal and child health at University of Alabama, Birmingham. And so she, in addition to that, because, she's continued to blaze trails, so she is a certified asthma educator. We'll talk about that today. She's trained widely on topics of pediatric asthma, education and management. She has several publications, professional presentations, and then she serves as the contributing faculty at Nova Southeastern Health Sciences Department in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She has many passions, one main of which being to serve and volunteer in several volunteers in several professional boards. Being NMA being one of or the National Medical Association, for those who know what NMA is, being one of the big parts of that, specifically the allergy, asthma, and immunology section and the internal medicine section. And so one of her activities is to write and reconcile grants. And so this year alone, and listen, we're just in August, you hear me? She has already secured over $100,000 in funding of several agencies. She received the prestigious Floyd Mavo award and countless other accolades. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk about her new role in the virtual aspect of the National Medical Association and all of that. So let's get started with talking to this dynamic, phenomenal woman. See, I got my Empowered Woman shirt on today on our podcast. Please welcome Dr. Chanda Holsey. Welcome.
Yay.
Hello, lady. So,
Hi.
First of all, listen, y'all, and that was a short version of her bio. This lady is moving. She is doing things. And we love here, Dynamic Doc, we love dynamic individuals and phenomenal individuals who don't just do, one facet of things, but they, you make a difference in multiple facets. You make a difference in multiple ways. Here, one of our mottos is aspire to inspire, and you're certainly doing that literally every day. I mean, this woman wakes up and that's what she does. So talk to us. One of your passions is health disparities in addressing health equity through policy changes, effective programming, research, and social media. Even if you decided that you wanted to if one of your passions was just one of those, it would have been challenging. So let's talk about policy changes, because that in itself, I mean, if you even took the rest of the stuff away, that in itself can be a challenge because of the different governing bodies that may deal with health policy changes. So tell me a little bit more about these passions, how you came to have those passions, and how you've been able to tackle the changes in those realms.
Okay, well, thank you for that incredible introduction. I'm so honored. And thank you for inviting me to your podcast. Remember when you invited me, I said, I'm not a medical doctor. You were like, no, you fit the bill. I want you on the show. So I really appreciate it, Dr. Joseph. And I'm flattered. So you said, how do I manage everything? And I think actually God gave me the innate ability And it's funny because we talked about God before we started, but God did give me the innate ability to manage and juggle a lot of things. Like I just have the ability to remember everything, and I could just multitask like no other. Because people always ask me, how do you do it? How do you do it?
Right.
It's a gift. And it's a gift that I've tapped into and I've been able to use to do so much. I think with me, I came from humble beginnings. So I came from the inner city, South Central Los Angeles, and I saw a lot of things, and I realized that I did not have a lot that other people had. Because growing up, I was always academically inclined, so I was able to be bused to different schools and different areas and neighborhoods, and I saw the disparity, you know. And so growing up, that kind of attracted me to public health, and I realized that, you know, if I live in a community where schools are not so great, the houses don't cost so much, taxes are not going to better the school, you know, that impacts me. That impacts a person. So I've always wanted to help make a difference. And so, for instance, I'm an elected official in my community, and I do live in an affluent area, but I still want to help those that are less fortunate. And so one of the things that I do that on my board, even if, you know, people consider us to have a lot of income or whatnot, but there's some people that may not. So I try to implement policies that will help those people as well as those, you know, people that are not as affluent as well as those that are. And so that's one of the things that I do locally. But I just think that just being passionate about wanting to help others attain kind of keeps me going. And that charges me, that drives me.
I think that's very powerful, wanting to help others attain, right? Because I think it's much easier to say, I want to help others, right? And I think that statement alone pushes us to think more on that. Like, okay, you want to help others to do what, right? One of the popular thing that's just kind of been amongst my, you know, life currently, and just my conversation with my friend is what's your why, right? And so it's like, okay, you want to help others, and you know, what's the rest of that statement? And I think everybody, like you said, everyone has a gift, contrary to what you may think, contrary to what your off days may make you feel, contrary to what the haters may make you feel like, contrary to what the obstacles make you feel like sometimes, whether it's imposter syndrome, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's a failure, contrary to what those may either perpetuate or stand for, everyone does have a gift. And I think trying to use your gift and passion to be better and do better is, you know, no matter what realm you're in, medicine or otherwise, it's important. But I think it's very powerful that you're saying, you know, not only help you get up, but I'm helping you attain. That's my thing. So then you mentioned you're involved and kind of made, you know, various positions in your community. Talk about the importance of that. And, you know, because we think about, you know, voting all the time and all that stuff, and then maybe getting involved in our community by, you know, the holidays will be here soon, you know, volunteering in the local soup kitchen and things like that. And that's very important too. But I think that oftentimes we may not completely grasp how important other things are as well, such as, okay, getting involved in your community. So for those who are saying, okay, Dr. Holsey, that may be a good idea, what do I even do? Do I go to like community meetings? Do I, you know, how does one, if you want to get involved in your community more than just, you know, maybe sporadically volunteering, maybe you want to get more, probably you want to be more in those rooms, the decision-making rooms in the community. What advice would you give those people?
That's a very good question. And it's what you just said, attending some of those meetings, getting involved. And then a lot of times people will see in you what you may not see in yourself, or either what you project, and they may tap onto that. So I'll just tell you how I'm an elected supervisor for my community, Fleming Island Plantation. So I am your honor. I mean, you know, the Honorable Chanda Nicole. And one of my friends was like, when they were having an election, she said, you really should do this. And Dr. Joseph, a lot of times I do things because people say it sounds like a good idea, and I don't really think it through. Because I'm just like that. Because I always want to make a difference. I always want to help. I always want to be of value, to others. And so when she told me that, I said, oh, okay, I'll consider it. And so I had been to some of the meetings, not a lot, but I started going more. And then I started campaigning, and I did. So it was fun. It was fun for me. But basically what I campaigned on was partnering in the community with you, because that's what I've done in my career. I'm in public health. I've always tried to work on like public health community initiatives. And so I think that was new to some of the community members, but they appreciated it. And I was able to get elected with a large margin. But I think it was that, people know that I'm passionate about what I do. And she said, you would be good for this. And I think that she was right. So it's been about 3 years now, and I don't regret it. I'm glad that I've done it. So I think that's what it is. Just kind of, like you said, kind of being in some of those rooms, making yourself available, attending some meetings, and showing that you care. I think people will see that, and they'll try to kind of push you and elevate you, and they'll kind of undergird you to reach new levels.
And I think that's important, what you just mentioned, showing that you care. And I think, so this is all after training, right? Like after your official studies. So how have you found, because I know you were saying that you're kind of heavily involved in not only public health, but specific, again, we talked about not only helping, but helping attain, not only just public health, but public health program implementation, public health management, things like that. How do you feel that has tied into your current position, if at all?
Yeah, so I think it's giving me the background to do it. So it started, I got my psychology degree at San Diego State, and then I moved to Atlanta and did some research work, and I was exposed to the School of Public Health at Emory University. And so I went there for graduate school, and it's health education and health promotion and behavioral science. And that just resonated with me. And so having that extensive training and then doing a lot of work, I remember I interned with the Boys and Girls Club there in Atlanta. I volunteered. I was actually a big sister, and I was actually Big Sister of the Year for Atlanta.
Come on, lady, you better do it.
Yeah. So, but
you want humble brag?
I know.
I love it. She's like, I did Big Sister, but I also was.
Yeah. So,
come on, if you're gonna do it well.
That's it. And so that kind of just, oh my gosh, it just feels so good to really know that you're making an impact in people's lives. And so what happened though, I've always had an affinity for asthma education, pediatric asthma especially. And I think it's because I thought about this. I had a best friend when I was growing up, and she suffered asthma, missed many school days and that kind of thing. And I think that made an imprint somewhere. And so I think that that's what attracted me to the field. But that led to working at the American Lung Association, kind of working, leading some projects and pediatric projects and that kind of thing. And that led to eventually what I do now with the National Medical Association, because there's a tie there. So when I was at the American Lung Association, got more involved in asthma, earned my asthma education certification, that kind of thing. And I met Dr. Scott, who's the current chair of the allergy section, of which you are the vice chair, right?
I am the vice chair. That's you at the vice chair. And a lot of people don't know this, but one of the main people I started talking to before I even really got involved in the allergy, asthma, and immunology section of the National Medical Association. I've always been involved in the pipelines, or I've been involved for a long time, of the National Medical Association, from being part of the MAPS chapter, which we actually called SNMA anyway, but in college, to being part of as SNMA as a student, medical student, and then NMA. But when I was in NMA, one of the first people I talked to in relation to the allergy section was Dr. Holsey. And so that, in addition to, very interestingly, Dr. Scott, I had heard of one of our past chairs is Dr. Lenore, who's a huge name in allergy in general, not just in the NMA. And so, of course, he's like legendary. So I heard of him, but in terms of like who really kind of like that I met and was saying, hey, talk to this person, because when I was graduating fellowship looking for a job at the time, was Dr. Scott. And then Dr. Holsey, I met before that I think you were the one that was like, hey, we're having a dinner, you should come. And then from there, I kind of felt really like embraced in the section, and it worked really well since I was like, an allergist, and I was like, this section. And then, so like recently being nominated for the vice chair, I was like, oh, and then Dr. Holsey was like, I think you'll be great. So in just really speaking to how you are, being like, people say I should, and I'm just like, okay. I think for me, I was like, I be helping and stuff, but and you're like, and again, because I work with Dr. Holsey in many capacities, one of which being social media, which we'll talk about next. Because sis, we got things to talk about. But but I think encouragement is important. But to one thing that you really said, part of the Big Sisters is mentorship and leadership. So that's obviously something that is heavy in that particular organization. Talk to me about the mentorship experiences you've had as a mentee, or maybe like a time when you were the mentee, and then how that has kind of affected you in terms of you obviously being a leader and being able to bring others along and that maybe want to be in the public health realm.
Oh yeah, sure. So I can think about two relationships offhand. One is, she's like my big sister now, Robin Jones. One thing that I hadn't brought up, but I used to be, what do you call it? I went out and I surveyed Head Start programs and made sure that they were meeting standards and that kind of thing. And so I was really new at that. I was very young in my career. A little timid, not so certain. And this lady that I met, she's actually my sorority sister, but she kind of took me under her wings and helped me learn the process, helped me learn the program and everything. And I became a very good auditor of the program. And my skills increased and my confidence increased. So she was really helpful in my career. And then one of my public health mentors, Marcia Griffith, she was working at the CDC. And I actually wrote a book chapter with her under her tutelage. Yes. Because she was just like, you could do this. And she was always encouraging. And I just felt like, wow, a book chapter, that's a great feat. And so those are two women that have been very helpful in my career and supportive. Yeah.
Perfect. And then what for those who may be listening to this podcast and they're like, my goodness, I want to do that. Whether it's I want to get into asthma education or I want to get into public health, wherever, because sometimes even as physicians, you may have a doctorate in osteopathic medicine, maybe a DO or an MD, but you want to get into the public health, or maybe you're, in college now and you want to get into public health. So what would you say as someone who's, real experience in that realm, both asthma education and public health, what would you say to someone who wants to get into either of those realms? Is that something is there like a centralized area that they can go to get their foot in the door? Is that just, hey, get your MPH, get your master's, and then that will help get the foot in the door? That's that. And then maybe asthma education is there, because I know there's an asthma education network, I believe, or the, so yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are many different pathways.
Okay.
One thing that comes to mind is the American Public Health Association. That's like our public health Association. And there's just different content areas that you can be involved in. I happen to be a part of the health education department, but then there's other things, you know, there's health policy, there's environmental health. So that's one area. You can always, like you mentioned, you can always get a master's of public health at different institutions online or, you know, brick and mortar. There are certificate programs that you can look into. And there's just an array of programs online too that you can access. Or a lot of times people do like preceptorships. Like I've been a preceptor for many students. And so they would come and work under me and train under me to get hours or, you know, hours for graduation or hours for a certificate program. But that's good to get the hands-on experience. So.
And that's usually there.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's just a lot of different ways to get more experience in that area. In those areas.
As a preceptorship, you're like already in a program. It's usually part of that program.
Yes.
Like get those hours. Gotcha.
Or and then you can also volunteer. Like one of the things that I learned from one of my professors back in MPH school was you can always do an informational interview. That's one of the things that I really recommend to people who might not know exactly which way they want to go, but you can contact a person that's doing something that you desire or that you find interesting. And you can tell them up front, it's not that I'm looking for a job per se, but I just want to know more about what you're doing. And most times people are honored to talk to you about what they're doing.
Right.
And just get on their calendar, and that way you can build some relationships. They don't necessarily be a mentor, but they can be someone that you can connect with and talk to for advice or whatnot. Or you can just glean a lot from maybe 1 or 2 hours with them. So that's something that I encourage people to do as well, informational interviews.
And that's just from whatever, like maybe you'll notice them on you know, Instagram, or maybe you're at a professional conference and you see them and maybe like, hey, can I have your card? I'd really like to, that type of thing, to help, you know, hey, I'd like to learn about how you get here. Or, you know, you can also listen to the How Do You Medicine podcast episode.
Yeah, you can do that as well.
And learn about that. And at which point, you know, we'll shout out, you know, social medias and things like that. So then at the end, I'll have Dr. Holsey share her contact information, or, you know, for her social media and things like that. And she also has an organization that she is the founder of. We'll talk all about that. What I wanted to get into, you know, I love like catchphrases and mottos. And one of your mottos is walk with wisdom. So I also love alliteration. The 3 W's, walk with wisdom. Yeah. And I wanted to know, what is a time in your life that you could think of where you had to be like, man, I'm at a crossroads, okay, Chanda, walk with wisdom, or you really had to apply that? What would you, I already see, go ahead.
I love this question. And I could write a book about this question. I have several anecdotes to respond to this question. However, the one that came to mind that I wanted to share was when I was in my doctoral program. I actually lived in Atlanta, and I went to get my doctorate at UAB, the University of Alabama at Birmingham. So it's a 2-hour drive.
One of my closest friends is from Birmingham. So
okay.
Every time, and I grew up in Nashville, so we're Southern girls. Of course, I'm a Caribbean girl first, but definitely grew up in Nashville. So now I saw like Birmingham. I was like, oh, she gonna be like, I'm gonna introduce somebody who went to Birmingham.
You know what? I just did not like Birmingham. Sorry.
I literally started this whole Birmingham thing for her to be like, but also. I did it.
Look, I love the university, so thank you. But I was able to have my classes to where I always had a 4-day weekend. So I was
okay.
And then I worked on my dissertation data with my advisor was at Emory. So after I finished my classes, I was out of there. But nevertheless, Birmingham was good to me. So anyway, when it was time for my comprehensive exams, though, I had entered into a new relationship, and it was just giddy and, you know, all that. It was wonderful. And I was not wise, and I did not study like I should have. I just kind of threw caution to the wind, and I just was not focused. Anyway, I failed my comps. the first time. I never felt anything. Okay.
Right.
So that was, oh my gosh, I was upset. I was distraught. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And my advisor was like, okay, so what are you going to do? As if to say, are you going to finish or are you getting out or what? And so I had never felt at anything academically. So it was just a new experience. But of course, I wasn't going to not finish, so I say that to say a lot of times people talk to you about their successes, and they make it seem like they hadn't really gone through anything. They just woke up like this. But that's not the case. I've been through some things. And so what I had to do, though, was I think that's when I first kind of coined that phrase for myself. I had to be smart. I had to not go to some of the social events. I had to not spend so much time with him. I had to get myself together. And, of course, I passed the next time and went on to be successful. But that was a time where I really had to apply wisdom and walk in that wisdom and reach a goal that I had set for myself.
Right. And now you would say, was that one of the most challenging parts of your journey so far? Would you say, like, getting that and being like, oh, okay, wake up call. Oh, I can't be caking and not studying. Oh, is that what you're saying? Oh, okay.
So yeah, and that it was challenging. But I have something even more. With that, I knew academically I could do it. I just didn't make wise choices. But I think what has been the most challenging for me, though, was when I had my daughter. I had a daughter, and I had a live daughter, and I say that on purpose because I had had a stillbirth like 3 years before. And interestingly enough, I lost my son Cameron during the same year that I graduated with my doctorate. And so after that, I had aspirations of possibly going into academia, looking for like maybe securing a tenure track position, maybe doing some research full time, just a lot of things that I wanted to do to kind of continue my career. Mm-hmm. And when I had Savannah, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to leave her. I kind of want to be there with her. And I know that the experience that I went through played a role, but it was also a part of me feeling like I was giving up. I had to give up something because I had always been, focused, a career woman or whatnot. But now it's like I have a husband and a child. Right. And I was at a crossroads, like, what do I do? And so for me, that was really a challenging moment because I had to figure it out, because I had been able to really do everything that I wanted to do so far and set goals and reach them. But now it's like, okay, what do I do? And so that was a challenging moment in my life.
Yeah, and to balance something you've wanted and now have personally with something you've wanted and now are trying to keep and maintain and have and continue to strive professionally. So I think balance, and I've said that to a number of people, and I said, balance is not to be obtained, but to be maintained. So no, much like a tightrope walker never stops checking his balance, nor should you. So it's not, you don't arrive at a balanced Zen place in your life and that is it, you've arrived and this is it. That is not how life works. But I think I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of people, being able to balance aspects of your life, right? One of the challenges of being a multidimensional person is balancing your multi-dimensions and desires and passions. And then did you feel like there was anything that particularly that helped you balance that time? Or like, what advice would you give someone to be like, who is in that place? Like, I'm trying to struggle. Like, I want to love on this little person. I want to show them that I appreciate them because I'm so grateful that they're here. But I also have these career aspirations that really, really, man, I know that there's like this sky I want to go to, but I really have this, like a motherhood sky or a wife sky, or just like in my personal life, like what advice would you give to help like with that balance?
Okay, so I'm going to pick back up on that NMA story. So that's where it came into play. So for the NMA, I was a faculty for them. They did a asthma symposium. And an aspect of it was at the asthma educator, how do you engage with patients and that kind of thing. And so I was actually part of that training circuit for a couple of years. Okay. And the person that is in my role now was in the role. And I just said, hey, if you guys ever need anyone to help, let me know. And when I was at that impasse in my life, I was thinking, Lord, I really want to work from home, right? And I was doing some online teaching, so just kind of keeping up my skills or whatnot. But about, I would say maybe 2 or 3 months later, I got a call from Dr. Scott, who said, hey, we need someone. Would you be willing to interview and that kind of thing? And so it led into an opportunity for me to still be in the field, but working from home. And so I guess what I always tell my girls is to network. Always do your best, because you just never know who's observing you. You never know what may come out of that. And so for me, that's what happened, because I knew I wanted to be there with Savannah, but yet still maintain some semblance of independence and professionalism, and not lose, it's like I went to school, I want to work, so reaching out, using my networks, kind of looking at what else could I do. And that opportunity became available. And 10 years later, I'm still with the NMA, the National Medical Association. So, yeah.
So to that end, actually, we'll get into, because you shared it with me, but I want you to share it, with our listeners, because NMA kind of ties into, I wanted to, a couple of the proudest moments you've had, where you're just like,
yes.
Good job, Dr. Holsey.
Yes.
Kind of like I see myself, a couple of I see myself moments. So so talk to us about those, because there are 2 of those proudest moments.
I'll talk about the one with the National Medical Association first, since we're talking about that. So, so I've been a part of the National Medical Association for some time, and primarily it's been working with the sections, like you mentioned, internal medicine and the allergy and asthma and immunology section. But within the past 3 years, I've been working as their social media manager, and I'm not professionally trained. I don't have any certifications or anything. It was just, I just have a passion and an affinity for social media. And so what happened was, I think it was about 4 years ago, maybe, our PR person moved on to another experience. And our executive director asked me, because he knew me from, other areas or whatever. He said, well, hey, would you like to do this for us as a stopgap measure until we, can find someone else or whatnot? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, because I love it. I love the mission of the organization, and I wanted to just be there and help. But again, I wasn't really professional at it. So I had to learn so many things, about the field. I did classes on Hootsuite, YouTube classes, things like that. And one of my proudest moments with that happened just a couple months ago. Organically, I helped increase our followers from like 300 Twitter followers to over 10,000. So I was like, yay!
Hey, woo,
I was so excited about that.
Organic growth.
Yeah.
That's persistence and growth.
Yeah. And so, and I'm really fortunate to be able to still educate people from the background. I did a lot of frontline work, earlier on in my career, but I'm sitting behind this computer, picking out, selecting which information that I feel is good for our audience, teaching them about different things, different, health policy things, health components, medical issues. And so I'm really proud of that too. Like this person behind our social media platforms am able to reach out and teach the masses. I mean, I'm really proud about that as well.
Yeah, and being able to inspire both education, inspire via education, empower via education, and inform, inspire, inform, empower, all of that in your way, on your terms, which is what this podcast is about, because we all have different ways and we all have different terms. And so for those who are trying to figure out what their way is, for those who are trying to figure out what their term is, for those who are trying to figure out what is my way, what's my voice, what's my path, is it this way, is it that way, or somewhere in between, hearing people and their journey helps forge yours and trying to figure out where we fit in, because exposure is important. So what and I know there's that was one moment. What's your second proud moment?
So my second proud moment was I was a part of the Association of Asthma Educators. It's a national organization that focuses on the importance of asthma education, and we focus on helping to certify people in that area. And so I started off as a member, and then I ran for the board. I think that may have been the first professional board I've been a part of, I think. But anyway, I became a board member and worked my way up to the committee chair, vice president, and I actually became the president of a national organization. Yay! And in that, I was able to implement a community service program, because a lot of the, initially, a lot of the board members, they focus more on the clinical aspect, but I said, we have to be the clinical and the community. So that was a way for me being at that
clinical
table.
And community. So you were you stood in the gap between the clinical and community aspects of that particular organization. So you're a clinical community bridge.
Absolutely.
For the two.
And
Perfect.
so as a result, every time we went to a convention, I had a convention, we would do a service piece as well. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because what is it without it? Without the community, what is medicine? Without the community, what is health? Right?
Absolutely.
Because what are we fighting for is the health of the masses, the health of the community, the health of the people. That's why it's so important to highlight individuals who take heed to that and walk the walk, and not just being like, of course people are important. But not only are you the president, you are the first African-American president.
Oh, yes, I was.
Oh, okay. That part. Oh, is that all? Oh, okay. That part. Yes, that part.
And I think that's far the only. So yeah, that's my distinction.
Look at he. She was like, I mean that's the case. I mean that happened. But minor the point is I'm helping the community, but I also, whatever.
Right.
So what would then be, having accomplished all that you've accomplished and then some, and still working and still inspiring and still empowering and still helping those attain. So even with, even still in your journey, which we have, I'm sure, more to come, what is like the biggest piece of advice you would give someone, or you want maybe our biggest takeaway or listeners to take away from our session today? Like whether it's advice, takeaway, or both.
Okay. Well, takeaway, follow your passions. I know it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. In my experience, I can say that. Follow your passions. The money will come. The accolades will come. I mean, if you're doing something that you're really passionate, driven to do, all the other things will follow. And so for me, that's how it was, because I genuinely care about the well-being of others, And so it's happened to be weaved into this large umbrella of public health. But in everything that I do, that is what kind of aligns everything together. So like when I talk about my position with my community, I'm trying, we just got some impact funds. I'm trying to help to have them build a teen center, because our teens need somewhere to go, to be safe and, and focus. And so, but that's what drives me, just doing things that will impact positively other people. And that's how the social media thing came about with the National Medical Association. That's how my positions with the sections came about. That's how my work with pediatric asthma, that group with the American Lung Association. A lot of those things came about because I was passionate, one, towards children. That was the initial thing. I really wanted to make an impact in children's lives, but now it's kind of broadened to the masses. And so, and life is not static. You know, your passions may change. You know, just kind of be malleable and be flexible too. You know, I think that's important.
Yes,
I think I was just gonna say, I think that there are gonna be bumps in the road. You know,
right.
I think oftentimes people, I think they talk about just the good things, you know, but
right.
we've all had to go through some things to get where we are, right?
Right.
And I think that it's important to let people know that it's not, you just don't wake up successful. You know, you have to put in the work, be tenacious, but stick to it. Yeah.
Stick to it. Follow your passion. There will be bumps, but keep going. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's just, you know, you find some mentorship. You talk to, you know, I think, you know, you talk to people who are where you want to be. You network. You do your best at all times. And, you know, and nothing's insignificant. You never know what's going to come from it. Right?
You
like the way we met, I literally was like, I was told to talk to you.
I remember that.
Hello, are you who I need to talk to? And then I think we met literally for 5 seconds in like 2 conferences ago. And I was just like, we took a little selfie, like, I finally met your face.
And look, another thing that happened too is you did your first NMA talk this year, didn't you?
I did do my first NMA talk this year.
Because I said, so we had someone that was supposed to do her session and she couldn't do it. And I said, Dr. Joseph can do that. And you did it.
I did. I was like,
NMA talks too.
Yeah, I did. Let me tell you something. Dr. Holsey is a woman of many talents. It would take at least 3 podcast episodes for me to even begin to encompass all that she does in medicine, all that she does in the community, all that she does that impacts the two and the interface. If I had to describe Dr. Holsey, I would say that she stands in the interface where community meets health. And I think that is why it was so important for me to both celebrate you, highlight you, and have you be a guest on my podcast, because I think that so oftentimes people box themselves in one of the circles. And I think that I wanted to make sure to highlight the overlap of those 2 circles, because so many of us, whether it's our passions or our callings, fall into that interface. And if you don't see enough people in that interface, you don't even know how it's possible. You may not have enough ideas of where do I even get started? Does that space exist? Or am I just someone that is forced to choose one circle over the other? And the answer is Dr. Holsey's here. And she is not, and she, trust me, is not in one circle or the other. She is quite literally the interface and the bridge between 2 very important parts of our both societies, worlds, communities, and health, for sure. So we would like to thank Dr. Holsey for being our esteemed guest today, to inspire us, motivate us, and of course, sprinkle some fashion on there with her Chucks and Pearls shirt on today. Yes, come on, giving us life with the necklace.
I wanted to say one thing. Yeah. A couple of my other models are to always soar with the eagles. So you'll be around people that kind of help propel you to higher heights and have people to help you reach deeper depths. I just love that. And my mom, she passed away a few years ago, but she just always taught us to just be people of character. She would always say, you know where you've been, but you don't know where you're going.
That's right.
And that's a word, you know, and that's how I live my life. Yep.
And so tell to me about that because I know you have a foundation. You haven't touched on that. So with that, like, talk to us about your foundation. Go ahead and give us both that website and your, you know, all things social media and context.
Well, I have an organization called Halo for Families, and I do a lot under that umbrella. Have written some children's books. I can develop curriculum, do evaluation, and that's haloforfamilies.org. And I'm on social media at Facebook, Halo for Families, and then also Chanda Nicole on Facebook and Twitter. Not on IG yet. IG.
But she, you know, of course,
and LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn. Oh, in LinkedIn. Are you Chanda Nicole Holsey in LinkedIn? Okay. And then the Halo for Families is an organization. Tell me the mission statement, or tell us the mission statement.
Healthy actions, healthy aims. That's what
healthy actions, healthy aims. And that's Halo for Families. And that website one more time.
haloforfamilies.org.
So it's just the name.org, people. And there you have it. That is Dr. Chanda Nicole Holsey. You got her social media. As you guys know, our podcast will be available in audio form in all of the major podcast platforms, and also in video form on my YouTube. And that's just search The Dynamic Doc, and that's my YouTube channel. And you'll be able to see the video version of this, because on the audio version, you can't see her fancy shirt and pearls. So we'll do that. And then just to make sure that you guys, you know, stay tuned for the next episode, and also make sure to check out previous episodes, so you can go ahead and catch yourself up, be inspired, and be motivated to, you know, continue being you, continue researching your passions. And if Dr. Holsey taught us anything, it's you can always not only find your passion, but expand your passion and do you. And that, you know, here at Dynamic Doc, we always end with, hey, we want to remind you and encourage you to make sure you live your life fully, on purpose, for a purpose. And that includes, of course, honoring your passions and gifts. And make sure to please stay healthy, stay safe, and definitely stay both peaceful and blessed. Thanks for listening, guys, and stay tuned for next episode. Thanks, Dr. Holsey. Peace, everyone.